So I welcome the team with Dr. Suha and my colleagues at the Arab Regional Center for World Heritage. And as proposed already by Dr. Suha during our last meeting in Bahrain, I would like to present to you one topic. Fortunately, a short time, because we are, as I said, we are having quite a number of meetings in this year where we have the General Conference of UNESCO, and in particular, one very important event about Angkor and the archaeological arc of Angkor in Cambodia. So let's start with the topic which was presented, which was asked by my colleague, Dr. Suha, climate change. As I said, you know, we in all parts of the world, we look at what is happening, you know, very incredible and unexpected fires in Canada for weeks, flooding in Florida, hurricanes in Asia, all what, and in France, in Spain. I mean, you are all looking at the television nearly every day. You see how the climate in our world is changing. Of course, for someone like my age, the climate has always been variable, but today we are really looking at a growing concern over the climate change issues, perhaps because the magnitude of the change seems to be unprecedented, but more importantly, because there is a strong evidence to suggest that humanity might be directly responsible for climate change. This is a very important point. And you probably know that Bahrain and the authorities of Bahrain, particularly the High Authority for Environment, worked with the Arab Regional Center for World Heritage already nearly 8 years ago for the preparation of the COP21 in Paris. And in Bahrain, we were discussing already 8 years ago how an island like Bahrain can deal with this climate change. So our planet is kept warm. This is, everybody knows it. I mean, you are all living in places where you have suffered probably from warm, and this is due to what we call the greenhouse effect. This effect is consisting of trapping the energy which is radiated by the Earth into the atmosphere. But instead of allowing this energy and this warmth to escape into the outer space, it is blocked, and the greenhouse gases involved in this regulatory mechanism are found in the atmosphere at a very low concentration. Some figures which are very clearly said in many of the publications. I'm not entering into too much details, but I sent you for your information, but also for your files, a number of very clear articles showing what are the figures about the impact of the CO2 which is absorbed each year by the forest. And of course, in UNESCO, because here I am speaking about what we are trying to follow with the experts in climate change, and I have the chance, you know, to work very closely with Professor Jouzel, who was a Nobel Prize and who is one of the leaders in France in the studies of climate change and what is happening to the sites. Because we are here, of course, in this very short presentation, you know, concentrating essentially on how sites, monuments, cities, which are recognized as important historical sites, are targeted by this climate change. So here you see one figure which is horrible: 190 million tons of CO2 absorbed each year by forests in 257 natural World Heritage sites. And you know that in the press, you have seen that the forests in Amazonia, the forests in Africa are the ones which are absorbing these CO2, but at the same time, there is a deforestation, and therefore this absorption is not done, and it will have an impact on the climatology in general for the whole world. On the another figure of 318 World Heritage cities, nearly 1/3 are coastal and are impacted by climate change. And you can see, if you are now in Bahrain, that Bahrain is a very low topographical, it has a very low topographical situation. And if there is a continuation of the rising of the temperature, that means of melting the ice in the North Pole and the South Pole, then you have a rise in the level of the oceans and the seas. And of course, Bahrain is a place where, if there are no measures taken, could be affected by this rise of temperature. Therefore, at UNESCO, we consider that we must act collectively to protect cultural heritage from the growing effects of climate change. UNESCO's natural World Heritage sites, in particular, and intangible practices play an important role in protecting the environment and conserving the biodiversity. This is one of the recent declarations done by Audrey Azoulay, the Director General of UNESCO. So you can see that at the highest level of UNESCO, this question of climate change is considered today as a high priority. But you can see also, if you look at the papers that I sent you, that other institutions are also looking at this question in a very, very deep manner. So World Heritage properties for us at UNESCO, for example, the World Heritage which are in Bahrain, Qal'at Al-Bahrain, the Pearl Route, the Dilmun tombs, are observatories to gather and share information on applied and tested monitoring, mitigation, and adaptation practices. The global network of World Heritage helps also to raise awareness on the impact of climate change on human societies and cultural diversity, biodiversity, ecosystem services, and of course, as a consequences on the world natural and cultural heritage. You have probably heard that the Arab Regional Center for World Heritage is the observatory for the World Heritage in all the Arab countries. Now we see by resolution of the General Assembly of state parties of the convention, you know that probably my colleagues at the center informed you that we at the level of Arab countries, we are working with all Arab countries in the field of world cultural and natural heritage, but at the level of all countries in the world, and this is very important to note, all countries in the world have ratified the Convention of 1972. So the General Assembly of these all state parties took note of the document that I sent you, which is the policy document on climate action for World Heritage, which was endorsed at the last session of the World Heritage Committee. It happened in China, in Fuzhou, in 2021, but as you know, it was the period of COVID, and it was done mainly online. Only people in China, in Suzhou, were following the session, the 44th session of the World Heritage Committee, and there it was decided to establish an open-ended working group of state party to discuss the situation of the climate change. This working group will be assisted by the bodies which are following and implementing the convention at the highest level at UNESCO is the World Heritage Center, assisted by what we call the advisory bodies, which are three: the IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, which has a base in near Geneva at the city of Gland; the ICOMOS, the International Council of Monuments and Sites, with its headquarters in Paris; and ICROM, the International Center for Study and Conservation of Cultural Property, which has its headquarters in Rome. So this is the group which is working with the assisted group by the state parties with the mandate to develop and update a final version of the policy document for consideration of the 24th session of the General Assembly. Sorry for the mistake, which is taking place in November this year. Now, that means this month, 2023, and not September, as I put in my slide. By decision always of this committee, then this is a panel which is established on climate change and world heritage. It is, as I said, done with qualified experts in the field of climate science and heritage. The first meeting took place online from 20th of March to the 1st of April 2022, and it was organized by the World Heritage Center with, as I mentioned, the advisory bodies, I repeat, IUCN, ICOMOS, and ICROM. This is very important because these advisory bodies are not governmental, while the World Heritage Center is belonging to UNESCO, which is an intergovernmental organization. And this was done, this first meeting was done with the support of the governments of Australia, Azerbaijan, and Netherlands. It is becoming, as I said in the beginning, one of the most significant threats to World Heritage properties, impacting their outstanding universal value, including their integrity and authenticity, and their potential for economic and social development at the local level. This is very important statement that we are making at UNESCO, because as you know, the inscription on the World Heritage site, on the World Heritage list, is done on the basis of very clear criteria, which are discussed at length for each one of the dossiers presented to UNESCO. And the first element that is put in front of the advisory bodies for evaluation of sites is the outstanding universal value. All the sites which are on the World Heritage list now in the world have been showing their value, and it is outstanding and universal. It is very important to keep this value, and if this value is not maintained, then I'm not enter into details, but there is a process. Then the site could be put on the World Heritage list in danger. And maybe if we have time for some question, I can enter into more details. Then you have two other important criteria: the integrity and the authenticity of the sites. This is the elements that are putting in front of the World Heritage Committee, which is meeting each year. And this year, you know that the meeting was held in Saudi Arabia in August, only 2 months ago. And each year, the committee is dealing with the proposal made by the state parties, studied by the advisory bodies, presented to the committee for final decision. And then, for all those who are asking questions, for example, I was in a meeting recently in Florence, and then another meeting in a World Heritage site, which was dealing with cultural heritage and tourism. there are many observers, many members of organizations, of administrations asking, what is finally, what is the benefit of having a site on the World Heritage List? And here, what is not always well understood is that these sites, whether cultural or natural, they have a potential for economic and social development. And this is a factor that could be affected by this change that we are living with. It's not something that is coming. This is something that it's in front of us. So UNESCO has been among the first institutions dealing with the impact of climate change on world heritage. I give you, for example, one site where we had a very important meeting 15 years ago in Monaco. We had a meeting about Monaco and the Mediterranean, and we received there, as I said, Professor Jean Jouzel. I gave you one of the articles and publication of Jean Jouzel. It was already mentioned at that time, we are having a climate change, and we have to do anything possible, first of all, to study, to establish a documentation, to make the assessment, and then to see how the climate change is impacting on World Heritage sites. This meeting was concentrated on the Mediterranean area, but now all countries are affected. So, as I said, 2006, under the guidance of World Heritage Committee, a report was prepared to make some prediction and to make some management about the effects of climate change on world heritage. And it was published with a compilation of studies, case studies on climate change on world heritage, and the policy document was published in 2008. So as I wanted to show you that this is not something that happened only these recent years. We are already more than 10, 15 years ago, this question was raised at the international level. According to this study, global average in temperature has reached 0.6 to 0.02 over the 20th century. That means last century. We see that already some kind of raise of temperature at the global level, it's not for one country, it's not for one region, it's at the global level, was already going to 1 degree. It's 0.2, we are close to 1 degree. There has been a widespread retreat of mountains, glaciers in non-polar regions. You can see, for example, if you live in Europe, that many publications and many news in the media or in the newspapers explaining that now in the Alps, in the Pyrenees, we see that the glaciers are melting. The northern hemisphere, spring and summer sea ice has decreased by about 10 to 15% since the 1950s. Again, I insist on this point. This is not a phenomenon which is just recent. It started, but let's be very honest, it was not seen as something which was important for the daily life as it is now. So the global ocean, for example, heat content has increased since the 1950s, and the global average of sea level rose by 0.1 meter during the 20th century. So now, what is the situation? The situation actually is that the global average surface temperature is projected to increase by 1.4 degrees to 5.8 degrees over the period going from the end of last century to the end of this century. And some studies are even saying that it will be worse. This global average surface of temperature means that sea level, and here I insist a lot because we are, most of us living near sea level, global average surface temperature means that sea level is projected to rise by 0.09 meter to 0.88 meter between 1919 and 2100. Global average water vapor concentrated and precipitations are projected to increase during the 21st century, and larger year-to-year variation in precipitation are very likely over most areas will be increased in mean precipitation when mean precipitation is projected. You have seen only this month heavy rains in France with flooding. Heavy rains, I was in Italy and I am in Italy, heavy rains also in the north of Italy, and very extent damage. These are not what happens during the past. I lived in Italy for 6 years between 2005 to 2011 when I was in charge of ICROM, and we had rain, but not at this level, actual level. So changes in extreme and severe weather, such as heat waves, drought, extreme precipitation, severe tropical cyclones can be expected and are expected now, and we can see them already. Such changes will have adverse impact on the conservation of cultural properties inscribed on the World Heritage List, because, as I said, we are only dealing today with what is happening now with the impact of the climate change. Glaciers, I repeat, are melting worldwide. The appearance of some mountainous sites inscribed for their exceptional aesthetic beauty could be changed dramatically. You see, this is already one consequence one element which was the exceptional universal value. If the vision of these mountains and all the permanent glaciers is disappearing, then one element for the criteria for their inscription will probably disappear. Sea temperature changes and increased level of carbon dioxide dissolved in the ocean make the condition for conservation of coral reefs more difficult, with more frequent occurrences of bleaching and leading to widespread death of coral. You have all, I'm sure, you are all reading what is happening in Australia for one very important site, which is called the coral reef. And now there are a lot of experts who are looking at the bleaching of the coral reefs, but also in other sites. Why? Because of the rise of temperature of the sea in these areas. Climate change will also force some plants and animal species to migrate, as they are unable to adapt to the changing environment, which is also posing a problem for the conservation of biodiversity hotspots, which are listed as natural sites. The same archaeological evidence buried in the ground could be lost rapidly if the stratigraphic integrity of the soils were to change as a result of increased floods, change in precipitation, or permafrost melting. The permafrost is for the sites which are inscribed, for example, in the north of Russia or in Canada, where now we are even looking at new discoveries because the permafrost is melting. Some properties of cultural heritage are listed as cultural heritage, are built on coastal lowlands, and increased sea level and coastal erosion could threaten their conservation. This is totally appropriate for the Gulf area region, for the Mediterranean area region, for the sea level in the near the Latin American sites which are near the sea. The outcome of this work has shown that it is timely to develop and implement appropriate management responses to protect World Heritage in the face of climate change. We cannot just stay silent and not react. There is a need now to try to find a solution to the global warming, And now you can see that there are continuous debate, and there will be a meeting very soon in the COP, like the one in Paris, in Morocco, etc., which will be held in the United Arab Emirates. Some of the measures beyond the scope of World Heritage are discussed also under the auspices of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. As I said, it's not a subject only for UNESCO or for the site, it is a subject for everywhere. But we have to see how World Heritage can be affected, and what are the measures from, what are the models or the examples that could bring innovative strategies and practice to integrate this World Heritage with sustainable development. And this is done through a number of case studies that started already to be done, inspiring and guiding local action to align with global commitments in line with the 72 Convention and the recommendation of 2011 of the preservation of historic urban landscape, as well as, this is one very important goal which was put by the UN for 2030 for sustainable development. Today, one of the natural sites, one in three natural sites and 1 in 6 cultural sites are currently threatened by climate change. This is not my statement. This is the UNESCO statement after having done all these meetings and studies with experts in climatology. In recent months and years, we have seen cultural and natural heritage sites, including UNESCO World Heritage Site, threatened by wildfire, floods, storms, mass bleaching events, among many climate change related climate change. We have also seen how climate change puts cities and living heritage, oral traditions, social practice, festive events, traditional knowledge at risk. Here, we are speaking not only on the Convention of 1972, I am also referring to a convention that I personally followed for its publication and preparation and publication, and then to its implementation. It is called the UNESCO 2003 Convention for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage. As you know, in UNESCO, now when we speak about World Heritage, we are the World Heritage under the Convention of 1972, and we have the Intangible Heritage of Humanity under the Convention of 2003. It is also under this convention that the climate change is also having a negative impact. And this impact is when the climate change is leading to displacement and forced migration of way of life being lost forever. So the UNESCO data highlighting the accelerated melting of glaciers in World Heritage, with glaciers in a third of sites set to disappear by 2050. That means for you will see this to the young generation, but it is still possible to save the other 2/3 if the rise of global temperatures does not exceed 1.5 compared to the pre-industrial period. This is the major challenge of the COP27, which will be held in Abu Dhabi. This figure of 1.5 was discussed during an international meeting in Paris, and all countries are normally committed to reduce the production of CO2 and to make sure that the global rise of temperature will not go beyond the 1.5. If it goes beyond, all the consequences that we have seen will affect this map. This map that you have also, if you are in Bahrain, in the exhibition that was prepared for the 10 years of the creation of the Arab Regional Center of Heritage, you can see extension of of sites on the world, and these sites, unfortunately, could be affected. And now I move to concrete consequences. This is in Latin America, a site that is actually abandoned because the rise of the sea. Here we have an example also in Latin America of sites which are more and more in danger because of the rise. Here you have the city of Hanoi, of Hoi An. Sorry, in Vietnam, participated with the Vietnamese about 20 years ago to the study of this city, to the description of this site on the heritage list. And here, more and more, all the inhabitants who were living on the edge of the river are now going away because of the rise of the sea level. Here, already some specialists and conservators are putting shelters because of the very heavy rains which are damaging archaeological sites. And here, one of the sites in Malta is actually protected by the conservators. Here you have another study which is underway in Egypt on the Plateau des Pyramides, on the Pyramids Plateau in Gizeh, because of the drought, which is affecting all North African region, but also because of the high level of temperature, which are making cracks into the walls of the pyramid. Here, there is also a problem in Venice. Venice is one of the very well-known World Heritage Sites. This year, the transformation of the sea level put all these small, tourist boats at quay because the water was dropping so low that they could not use the very famous channels but at the same time, you have two phenomena in Venice this year. All this is a picture of this year. At the same time, the heavy rains were so heavy that it was not possible to go in what is the main place of Venice, which is called Piazza San Marco, and it was impossible to have anyone to walk in Piazza San Marco. And this difference of temperature, very high level temperature bringing drought, very heavy rain bringing too much water. This is affecting the value of the monuments. Here you see the Basilica, which is one of the major historic monuments in Venice, the Piazza San Marco, the tower. I mean, these are the phenomenon that we can see. When we move to another major example of this year, I'm not speaking about last year's or no, I'm speaking about what is happening 2023. This is a site in Pakistan, which is called Mohenjo-Daro. It is one of the most ancient urban settlements in the world, dating for around 5,000 years. And this site was very heavily protected by UNESCO with a lot of consolidation on the walls, on the brick constructions. This year, all these sites were fully flooded. And we don't know how to manage the protection of this site. Now we are preparing a meeting for beginning of 2024 with the Pakistani authorities, with the support of a number of countries having an experience like Germany. The Technical University of München was working with us on this site. We are now going to prepare a meeting specially dedicated to the adverse conditions that happened in the Indus Valley in Pakistan. This is, I show you the site when it was in such a good situation before the flooding. And here you see the site in Mohenjo-Daro after the flooding. The site was totally underwater. Another site which could be affected by climate is in another very far region in the Pacific. It is called Rapa Nui, or Eastern Island, belonging to Chile. And this site have these famous Moai statues, a lot of literature. I'm not entering into this, but this site is also an island where the difference of temperature, the heat from one side, and then the very heavy flooding happening in this site is also going to damage one of the. It's a jewel in the Pacific. It's quite a unique expression of arts and probably of the religion of people having lived in this island of Rapa Nui. The same is happening also in India with the Taj Mahal receiving so heavy rains, particularly this year in India. Many people died in this area, and this is one of the very, very important Mughal architecture, which is also being damaged by the change of climate. We move to Italy. This is also a picture taken this year in Sicily, and you see how the waves now are not reaching only the rock area of the edge of the island, but also the building themselves. And finally, Saint Louis du Senegal in Africa. So I was giving you, images of different places in the world. This is to show you that climate change is not a single phenomenon which is attacking or affecting one region or one country. It is everywhere. And here in Africa, this is a site which is on the World Heritage List. It's called Saint Louis du Senegal. And you see how the buildings which are on the seaside, they are now abandoned because of the rise of the sea. So this is, of course, a very short presentation, but with Dr. Suha, we consider that this topic is a contemporary topic. This is not a phenomena that is happening some years ago or that is happening only in one place. It is a real phenomenon, and it is important. One, to have a very high level of awareness at the level of all those who are going to be impacted. Of course, we as people dealing with cultural heritage, whether tangible or intangible, we have to be prepared and to see how some solutions can be used and adapted. I don't have the picture with me because the meeting will be organized beginning December in a site in Italy which is called Matera. It was inscribed on the World Heritage List, and the meeting that will be held in December will study how this site is offering some solutions that in the past people, the inhabitants, were using to fight against drought, because high temperature happened also in the past, and some solutions were found by the people traditionally to prepare and to prevent the damages in their city. And this is one of the examples that I know is going to be discussed concretely on site with the experts coming from Italy, but also from other regions, to see how there is an adaptation, possible adaptation, and possible research of solutions against the impact of climate change.